Summons have been problematic in Domination pretty much since its beginning. I mean, the cultists were meta for so long because their summons were so strong, and now in Immortal Empires, we have a couple of factions in particular that have easy access to a huge number of summons and could cause some serious issues in Domination if left unaddressed. I think it's probably time Creative Assembly institutes a rule limiting 2 summon abilities per army, but let's get to that in just a minute. For my opponent's Skaven build here, we've got a Gracier Lore of Plague with, what would you know, Vermintide and the Dreaded 13th. Also got a Plague Priest, Lore of Plague with, what would you know, Vermintide and Pestilent Breath. I think just comes with the Plague wagon here, the... yes, whatever it's called. I forget it for the time being. It'll come back to me. Censer Bearers. We've got Skaven Slave Spears. We've got some Skaven Slave Slingers in the back. Poison Wind Mortar coming in already from the woods. Myself playing as Khorne. I've got a Herald here and a couple of Blood Reapers all on foot. Hellforge Hosts, some Bloodletters, and another Exalted Bloodletter over on the far side. Some Chaos Warhounds of Khorne, and some Blood Crushers also hidden there in the woods. Let's take a look at the reserve armies. In reserves, I've got the Norskin ROR Brutes the Hound available for Khorne, 1 Khorne Halberd, got 4 Flesh Hounds, 4 Furies, and 4 Warhounds. My opponent, the Wild Mutant Rat Ogre pick, also a single Death Runner, 2 regular Rat Ogres, we've got 3 Poison Wolf Rats, 3 Clan Rat Spears, a single Rattling Gun, that's the ROR Teeth Breakers. Also got a single Gutter Runner with Poison, that's the Shuriken Short Range 360 shooting variant, and 2 Clan Rats and 2 more Skaven Slaves. And coming back to it, Plague Furnace, that's right, that's what it's called, now I remember. Anyway, so my opponent coming in here with maximum summons. This is also something that the Vampire Counts obviously can do with their Necromancer spam. But in general, it's going to be a very strong amount of power because you can get free units. And while summons don't necessarily have capture weight, I mean, the Cultist meta tells us that just having extra units fighting and trading in terms of getting extra value on the field can be good enough to win. Khorne, it's interesting because they don't really grind in attrition that well, and I haven't really brought the heavy armor Khorne units for a number of reasons, mainly because I'm very worried about how vulnerable they are to the Poison Wind effects and attacks. The Poison Wind Mortars and Globes do quite a bit of explosion damage, armor-piercing explosion damage, and then also the damage over time effect on top of that. Bloodletters, I'm not sure, given the lack of armor, you know, and the reliance on physical resistance, they're still going to take damage from the explosions, obviously, but they won't take as much from the damage over time effect, given that it counts as spell damage. And they're also going to take less drain damage from the Plague Priest if he's here. So all of that consideration is why I've brought primarily Bloodletters in this context. But also, you know, Skaven don't have a ton of large units, although probably should have had a couple of Halberds in order to take out these big Skaven Plague carts. But for the time being, we're both just kind of summoning in units, getting ready for the battle, maneuvering. As soon as those mortars start applying some pressure, though, I am going to need to get into combat. So Hellforge Host take a little bit of a volley. The dot's not going to do too much to them, but Skaven summons already starting here. If we can keep track, I'm going to try and count them if we can. See how many my opponent actually got here in this battle. We've got 1 there. These Furies are going to rush in and try and get on those mortars, but my opponent responds very well with some Wolf Rats. These are the poison ones, so they don't have magic damage. They're not going to do quite as much to the Furies, but I'll nope out of that. Just wheel up and around and try and get another engagement here. The Blood Crushers are going to come in and try and just goon the Plague Priest real quick. Although they're not anti-large, that heavy armor piercing damage will help me get through the 100 armor of that Plague Priest, and the high charge as well, 55 charge. Pretty decent stuff, but we'll see. I mean, the Exalted Bloodletters get intercepted there, and some really nice Plague drain damage here, hitting a whole bunch of units at the same time. But Blood Crushers come in here. My characters are struggling to get into combat due to the animation set there. Nice job with Warp Storm Scroll. Nice job, I should say. Killing 1 Fury there. Another Fury coming out. Dreaded 13th. Okay, so there's 2 summons. That one's quite a bit of Winds of Magic. Does some explosion damage also, but definitely a great call to get this heavy halberd just completely saturated in to Blood Crushers. They are absolutely going to tear them to shreds. And the reason I advocate for a limit of 2 is that you could still then take, you know, your 1 Lore of Plague caster with both of his summon abilities and you wouldn't have to choose for one or the other, right? I think a limit of 1 is far too low, but I managed to get the charge there on the Sensor Bears without getting charged with the Hellforge hosts. Should be able to just mop through this unit very quickly, although the Sensor Bears do fight back surprisingly well against demonic infantry, given their own high magic damage and high model count. Meanwhile, over on the other side, just secured this with some doggos, and now Skaven slaves and Death Runners are going to go in and try and take that. The Death Runner is actually really smart. The anti-infantry damage will apply versus the Hounds and Furies, so if I reinforce with many fast units, they should do great. But here in the center, yeah, I mean, so far only the 2 summons, but let's see. The Dreaded 13th there, I mean, they pretty much ended up doing enough damage to the Blood Crushers to finish them off. Then the Blood Crushers come into combat against Sensor Bearers and really do get finished off. But Wolf Rats with Poison there also coming through. Hellforge Host starting to clean up quite a bit of value. But I'm kind of just getting out-traded, even though I have quite a bit of units on the field still, and I've managed to control both of these objectives, slightly ahead in terms of capture. It's just going to be a tough time in general. And I brought the Brutes of the Hound in, ultimately because of their extra speed, although I probably should have sent them over to the side objective to try and control this space, rather than here in the center, because they're going to get shot up by slingers and other units, which will deal quite cost-effective damage to them. But the mortar's still online in the back, despite my best efforts with Furies. Going to be quite painful for the Hellforge host to have to endure. And then both of these summoners, both online, ready to pull in some more unit models. Although that Dreaded 13th did use up quite a bit of Winds of Magic, they're not going to be able to get as many Clan Rats, but obviously the more elite status of the Halberd Storm Vermin there being more important. But anyway, okay, looks like we've got another summon there. Almost missed it due to that camera glitch. Clan Rats coming in. Just regular old Clan Rats. And was that the Morse Guitar's Hellion? No, just a regular Mutant Rat Ogre. Able to do some nice armor-piercing damage. Nice single entity presence. I mean, at this point, my opponent just has so many more unit models on the field from me. And the Hellforge host also kind of overrunning a little bit into this backline, and probably should reinforce back this objective. Although, yeah, if I can get these Warhounds of Khorne over to that mortar team, that should be pretty nice. Over here, I used some of the Khorne army abilities to help these units win against what was here. You know, the Death Runners and such. The Khorne army ability in particular makes you unbreakable and unable to lose models is very key. I kind of missed that, but was able to control that objective in the meantime. Even though value trade is not going great here in the center, that one summon Clan Rat is just about done. I don't see the summon effects on any other Clan Rats, so we should be doing okay. Hellforge host, Brutes of the Hound sort of form a double-sided attack here and managed to break up a lot of this Skaven chaff. There's just so many bodies in here still, though. Looks like, oh, there is another summoned Clan Rat. Okay, so we're up to 4 summons, 3 Clan Rats, and 1 Storm Vermin, which is almost 2,000 free value. And keep in mind that even with resummoning Cultists multiple times, you could really only get, like, what, 1,600 with 2 summons, 1 on each. And you'd have to pay for both of those characters. Anyway, yeah, Unholy Clamor there from the Greyseer Lord Plague. Gonna buff up all his units' leadership and refresh their vigor, help them hold longer in this fight. Honestly, really nice. The Bell in Domination I have found, and just in land battles in general, as it was for a long time in Warhammer 2, is just such a solid option, really. And I've been unable to finish off the Plague Priest as well. I've been unable to finish off both of them, to be honest, which is quite painful. Eventually, my Lord gets assassinated there by the Skaven Assassin and the Mutant Rat Ogre. They're now going to turn over to the Blood Reaper, and he'll suffer a similar fate here. Most ignominious defeat for a champion of Khorne. Oof, nasty hit there in the back. And there's just too many rats. Way too many rats all over the place. Got some more Furies coming in here. Got another unit of Bloodletters coming in here. Still managed to control both of the objectives, though, so although it feels bad, and numbers-wise, I don't have the total army counts or you know, values or anything here, unfortunately, but I mean, it doesn't feel good, I should tell you that. There's just so many rat units still on the field here, and Rat Ogres now being summoned in en masse, and we've got another Clan Rat summon coming in here, so now breaking 2,000 up to 2,200 value, not to mention the explosion damage of the Dreaded 13th, which also did quite a bit of damage. So, over here, a couple of Wolf Rats come in, they're able to ambush this Khorne Hound, although we use the same Relentless Rage ability to just help them win. Their unit models take damage, but none of them end up dying, and that Unbreakable effect means they win hard on leadership. The low leadership of the Wolf Rats, but Death Runner's following up. This time I don't have the Furies and other units to be able to reinforce, so I am at risk now of losing this. I'm going to throw another Hound unit out there, but I don't think they're going to be enough to take down those Wolf Rats. And then in the center, the infantry I had still contesting this point and holding eventually just run out of steam. I just straight up lose. Both of them just die. And then that's it. All of a sudden, my entire army's gone. And even though I've been ahead on objectives the entire time, and if we were to see the army value trades, not including the summons, it's probably close to even trade. But I just lose because I don't have enough units now. And the 5-6 extra units. Oh, now here's another one. So that's up to 2,500 extra gold that my opponents got here. And I mean, granted, you could get that pretty well just with the one caster, right? Like, you don't even necessarily need the second caster. Just the one with the Dreaded 13th and the Clan Rats can provide this. So I guess what I'm saying is 2 casters with multiple summons is absolutely overkill. And had my opponent not even taken the Dreaded 13th, I mean, tactically he needed those halberds to kill my elite cavalry. But even still, you know, just being it as it is still is, I mean, but had both of them just summoned Clan Rats, they could have achieved close to the same value, right? So it's just, it feels very painful, and the amount of free summons that you can get just with the one caster is way more than enough, and already is going to make Skaven a huge pain to deal with. Like, basically sniping their summoner is going to be the way to deal with Skaven in Domination and in land battles in many ways. It's kind of always been that way, to be honest. Skaven summons carried them in many aspects, but it's especially true in Domination, where summons have sort of an outsized effect because of the smaller army sizes typically on the field at a given time. Means that the summon, you know, proportionally to the army that's on the field is a much greater percentage power spike. So, I mean, at this point, it's pretty hopeless. We're going to fast forward through the end because the outcome of this battle has absolutely been decided already. And I'm going to just keep reinforcing, mostly just for the fun of it, even though I probably should have thrown in the towel already. But it's an interesting discussion to have. You know, I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts about it. You may have seen some other videos on other channels featuring, like, multiple Necromancers summoning, multiple Skaven casters summoning. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I just think in terms of raw army value, like, over 3,000 potentially points if you use all your Winds of Magic literally on summons. I don't know. I'd have to math it out again to see if that's actually viable. But, I mean, legitimately a ridiculous amount of value just from summons alone. And, I mean, yes, you're using your Winds of Magic on that, so that Winds of Magic can't deal damage. But just having more units in so many matchups and in so many contexts is going to be what wins you the game, especially in those smaller engagements, like I said. So, I don't know. I think that you should be limited to 2 summon abilities per army, and I think in multiplayer, at least, I think that's a pretty reasonable change to ask for. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. In terms of my army damage value, I mean, impressive kill totals, terrible value. Kind of speaks to fighting Skaven. Yeah, my opponent's army damage values here, similar, I mean, story. Not a lot of stuff actually ends up paying for itself, except maybe a couple of the slingers. The characters, weirdly enough, don't even get that much damage value. I think there maybe is a bug with some of the demonic units and how the damage is tracking on them. But Wolf Rats definitely had a field day competing against my Flesh Hounds and Furies and whatnot. Roots of the Hound, again, 181 kills, less than 400 value. And Skaven versus Khorne, it's an interesting matchup nonetheless. Outside of the summons spam, definitely would be an interesting matchup, but the summon spam just makes it feel so unfun and just really, really painful to play. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.